Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the crossroads of curation and castration. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And this is what, episode 36?
I think so.
That's tight.
That's tight. That's a good number.
Yeah, I'm liking it. It's square root 6, right?
Uh-huh.
It's a good one. I like my squares, Curtis.
I come from a Wu-Tang Clan appreciation of 36.
The 36 chambers.
The 36 chambers.
Very important number. Important number. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I feel like I need to apologize for something from last week.
For what?
For implying that there aren't a lot of video games that have good stories. Because I've been thinking about that.
We've been getting emails all week.
We've been getting a lot of emails. The tweets have been coming in fast and furious. and I've been thinking about it, and I was wrong. There are a lot of video games with very good stories. Like stories like books have stories, not just personal gameplay stories. I like the story in Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross also.
Proceeds to name games from like 30 years ago. Games still have good stories. This one on the Super Nintendo's got a pretty good story.
I don't know if there are still good games, but I shouldn't have painted all video games with such a broad brush, all right?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I apologize to the listeners and to video game designers for that.
I think, I'm sure they're listening and they'll appreciate that.
They're here. They're here with us. Do you have any apologies you need to make?
Just I'm sorry in general for everything always.
Yeah, just a blanket regret.
Yeah. That's it.
Well, speaking of blanket regrets, what are we talking about this week?
This morning you fall and you can't get off the floor. That's your hips, Alvin. And you're going to have to use a walker now to get around.
No walker. I love a lightning storm.
Me too, Dad. Uncle Al, I had a stroke.
Rose, darling, I'm going to go back on the road. And I've got to make this trip on my own. I've got to go see Lyle. I know you understand.
Alvin, you're going to get blown right off the road. That's what I'm afraid.
Mount Zion, Wisconsin? Why didn't you just take your car?
I don't have a driver's license.
That's 60 more miles of hills. That's across the Mississippi.
I'm having a little engine trouble.
I'd be happy to drive you the rest of the way to Mount Zion.
I still want to finish this the way I started. And this trip is a hard swallow for my pride. I just hope I'm not too late. You've got two brothers that haven't spoken in 10 years. I want to make peace. I want to sit with him, look up at the stars, like we used to do so long ago. A brother's a brother.
The Straight Story.
The Straight Story, starring what? Richard Farnsworth?
Yes, Sissy Spacek. Harry Dean Stanton's in there for a hot like
second.
35 seconds.
He's like third build, but he's just in there at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many David Lynch movies have we talked about?
Too many. This is like 7 or 8.
6, 7, 8.
It's got to be more than...
We got Eraserhead. We've got Elephant Man, Dune, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, the Twin Peaks movie that we didn't talk about, so don't count that one. But then the last one we did last week, Lost Highway. Right? So this is number 7.
This is number 7, The Straight Story. Next week is the last one.
The final episode.
We'll get to that.
Yep.
So, what'd you think?
I really like this movie.
Yeah.
This,
what'd you like about it?
I liked that it still feels like a David Lynch movie. Mm-hmm. I think David Lynch had started to kind of paint himself into a corner in the 90s after you got, Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks movie, which is apparently incredibly violent and disturbing, and Lost Highway, and people started to expect like, oh, okay, he does violence, gore, sex, and profanity. That's David Lynch's thing. So I like that David Lynch then comes out with this movie, The Straight Story, to say, no, my style is not defined by those darker elements. My style is defined by something altogether different that I'm not quite sure I can articulate, but it's something like sound effects and the camera angles that feel Lynchian. It's not just the darkness of the world, it's also this particular way of framing a shot that you and I were talking about this a little bit before we recorded, but we could name like specific shots from this movie that felt very Lynchian.
That was, I think, probably the most impressive thing about the movie was that I was wondering last week how this movie was going to feel, whether it would feel as surreal or if the straight story was like a play on words, like, nope, this is just a movie. And I was really impressed that David Lynch was able to make a movie that was so different from his previous movies, but still felt like a David Lynch movie for sure.
The bit in the hardware store, that's a damn good grabber. I don't know, Alvin. That's a damn good grabber. It's going to take me at least 2 months to get another one on order.
Very, very Twin Peaksy. I watched this also with my wife, and the music in the beginning, as soon as it turned on, she was like, there's that music. And I was like, yeah, we're definitely, that was like the first sign that we are indeed watching another David Lynch movie.
What's the guy's name? Something Badalamenti?
Yeah.
Angelo Badalamenti,
I was actually, while we were looking this up, I was looking up Mary Sweeney's name, so I'm actually on the page.
Mary Sweeney and John Roach wrote this.
Yeah.
They were longtime contributors to the films that David Lynch makes. And Fisk was on this one, too. Am I making that up? Production designer?
Yeah, I don't know. I believe it, though. I think that's a good thing to bring that up, because I want to call bull on a little David Lynch action.
Yeah? Who exactly are you calling bull on?
David Lynch.
David Lynch. Okay.
So,
all right.
Last week I had read before I had watched this movie that when somebody asked him why he chose to do this movie, he said it was just the next script that he fell in love with. Mm-hmm. I'm calling bull. I'm saying that's bull, David Lynch. I think your friend and longtime editor, Mary Sweeney, wrote a movie and was like, hey, best friend and collaborator, you mind directing this? And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll direct that. I think that's probably... We've been seeing... I don't think we've mentioned it yet, because I hadn't realized it was like a pattern up until now, but Mary Sweeney has been editing and I think producing to some extent a lot of these movies that we've been watching. So who knows to what extent that David Lynch feel is actually also attributed to Mary Sweeney. That's an
interesting question.
I don't know where that line is, and I just know that now that I've been watching that, I'm like, I don't want to give David Lynch all this credit or things I maybe even don't like. Who knows? There are more contributors here, which, as I was talking about last week, kind of also reminds me of a little Kevin Smith action. Relying on the same people.
Everybody does that. What if you find someone that you work well with, why wouldn't you work with them again?
That's fair. And a lot of directors do that. So, but
speaking of Quentin Tarantino, talking about someone who works with the same people over and over and does the same thing in almost a ritualistic, obsessive way.
But
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No. The big thing I had to say, though, was it just you fell in love with the script, or was it just a coincidence that you're...
Why can't it be both? Why can't this all be true?
It can be, but, if it could be both, and if it were both, maybe it would have been nice to say, well, my good friend and partner wrote this movie and I loved it, so I wanted to make it, not just... I don't know. I noticed.
It's a really weird bone to pick, Kurt.
I noticed that.
Are you claiming nepotism? Are you saying that you should have written this movie and that Lynch ignored your 9-year-old script?
That's what we're trying to say here is, last week I was going off on this incoherent rant about whether things are accepted or not based on the quality of work surrounding it. Mm-hmm. And if Mary Spencer,
Mary Sweeney?
I keep getting confused because of Mary from Eraserhead. That's where Henry Spencer, all these names, all these American names.
Who would make us memorize this many proper nouns?
Right.
We've been talking proper nouns too long.
They're
getting all mixed up.
Anyway, I just had to throw that out
Just
there.
had to air that out.
I had to
air
get
out that
grievance.
dirty laundry.
If she hadn't written this movie, would he have loved it so much? These are the questions.
I don't know that anyone else could have written this movie.
It's a pretty unique movie.
It is. Yes, it is.
So, what are some things that make this movie unique?
Well, it's about a man named Alvin Straight, who, upon hearing that his brother Lyle Straight is in dire hospitalization, might die. Alvin Straight, an old, blind, crippled man, decides to hop on his lawnmower and drive, 370 miles between Lorenz, Iowa, and Mount Zion,
Wisconsin?
Mount Zion, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Just a straight shot, right? So that's what the movie's about. I ain't never seen any other movie with a plot like this.
But that straight shot was on a lawnmower that goes 5 miles an hour.
That's what I forgot to mention.
Yeah, that's important. It's not just like a day trip.
He decides to ride his tricycle.
Yeah. He probably would have made better time. Not maybe he personally, but I imagine somebody on a tricycle could make better time than
on that than on his lawnmower that kept breaking down.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing, right? That like his original lawnmower breaks down after
5 miles out of town or something.
some crazy small number of miles. He goes back, hitches a ride back,
dragged all the way back to the start.
Yep, hitches a ride back, buys another lawnmower.
Yeah, I think that lawnmower was 30 years old. The next one that he bought.
Yep, 1966 John Deere.
Yep.
Yeah, and then successfully drives that one until he gets to the hills surrounding the Mississippi, at which point the fact that he's dragging this huge trailer behind him, which is not, I don't know if people at home are familiar with lawnmowers or not what lawnmowers are meant for.
Yeah, not meant to haul anything.
Technically they are tractors, but you're not supposed to tract with them.
So, I was reading, this was a movie kind of hit me in the same way, similar to how Blue Velvet hit me. I watched it, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good, that was alright. It definitely, I didn't know a lot of the stuff surrounding it, so I saw a Disney movie, and I was like, this is definitely like, you can't fall asleep as a kid, and you're watching the Disney Channel at midnight, and then Zorro is on, and then The Straight Story is on. I don't see this as like a goof troop following. Like, it doesn't look like an A-list Disney movie to me. Looks like a made-for-TV with, I guess, probably a better budget. Although, I don't know. I think a lot of the budget of this movie was probably in, production, not so much... How should I say that? They went on the actual route.
Yeah, they chronologically, too.
Yeah,
they filmed this movie in order, which is very strange for movies.
And I think probably a lot of that $10 million budget was dragging a whole film crew 300 miles more than... You got a lawnmower, you got an old guy. Mm-hmm. Not too much money needs to be involved.
And just any old guy. They found some old guy.
Any old guy. It probably was Alvin Straight. The Alvin Straight. But anyway, this movie was not financed by Disney. No,
right?
Yeah,
it was financed independently and then picked up by Disney after so on and so forth. After they saw it at a film festival, I don't know if it ever aired on the Disney Channel. I don't know if that's.
I can picture it. I've spent a lot of late nights not being able to sleep at my old friend Colton's house, and I watched a lot of Zorro, and I watched a lot of crappy movies like this.
Yeah.
Not that this is a crappy movie, but...
This is a good movie.
It's a pretty good movie.
It's a really good movie.
It is a pretty good
so
movie.
It hit you like Blue Velvet.
Yeah, where, I watched it, I thought it was good, I liked it. My wife cried, the whole time.
It's a really sad movie.
Yeah. But then I read about it more, and learning about it made me like it more. Just, one of those context movies. But the fact that it was a movie about, love and family and friendship, and it was created by, the director and the person who helped write the film were such good friends and coworkers, and then they went on this same journey. They could have easily, picked Louisiana and just filmed in like 4 or 5 separate locations in the same town.
It wouldn't have looked right.
That's what I'm saying.
It wouldn't have looked right. They went the extra mile. They went the extra 300 miles.
Yeah. That's what was one of the things that I liked about it so much, was that it has this feeling of importance and significance, and that this trip that they made, the trip itself was important. There were things that he saw, things that changed him, people he met, and I think that when the movie makers had interest to go on this journey as they were making the movie, not even like we'll do this journey and then make a movie about it as we have a better understanding of his journey. I think that if they were making it as they made that journey, that it adds a significant, something to the film.
Yeah. And, well, I guess the other thing that I like about this movie is that Alvin Straight's journey is not just the journey on the lawnmower.
Yep.
It's also an internal journey to the heart of his dark past, right? The reason he's going on this trip is because he hasn't talked to his brother Lyle in 10 years at that point, right? So, and it's implied that the reason he hasn't talked to his brother Lyle is related to his alcoholism, to Alvin's alcoholism, that is. So as he goes on this journey, it's not just him on the lawnmower. He goes on all these little, not adventures, but he meets people.
Yeah. And
he has these little encounters with people. Like when his lawnmower breaks down, I think he gets picked up by that bus with all the old ladies on it.
Yep.
And he meets, he encounters a bunch of bicyclers, a bunch of cyclists.
Yep.
Who are on a big trip together. Race? I don't know. Was that a race?
They
just seemed to be on a big biking camping trip.
There were just many cyclists.
Yeah, just a bunch of cyclists.
Runs into the pregnant teen runaway.
It convinces her, tells her his story about one stick versus a bundle of sticks, and how it's a metaphor for family. And he's clearly thinking about his own family, because he hasn't talked to his brother in 10 years.
Yep.
You're stronger together than you are alone. He also mentions at one point this idea that having a sibling who's near you in age is valuable because they know you better than anybody else knows you.
Yeah.
And they know you in a way that nobody else can possibly know you because they've just known you forever. Yeah. There's the woman with the deer.
Yeah. That also was a super David Lynch,
a bizarre moment.
Weird, nightmare within a movie.
Yeah.
Classic David Lynch moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Screaming that she has hit 8 deer
she's
in the past
hit 8
month
in the past
or something.
7 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, just keeps hitting deer. Where do they even come from? It's flat. But the way that the deer getting hit is framed is cool because it happens off screen. But you just see Alvin Straight tootling along on his lawnmower, and suddenly you hear screeching tires, and the camera just zooms in on Straight's face, and he's shocked. What's going on? And something's happened, something's been hit, and then the camera kind of turns around, you see the deer on the road, and you figure out what's happened. That was a really creative way to do that, I thought.
Yeah, there were a lot of... Any moment in this movie, I don't want to say any, but there were lots of moments in this movie where something dramatic or violent could have happened, and you get this really cool G-rated filter. Mm-hmm. The things still happen, but you get them presented to you in a way that makes it okay for a kid's movie.
It's still visceral. It's just not shown to you in exactly the same way.
You hear that the ominous thud of when Alvin falls down, and you hear it from outside.
You hear it, but it's just through the window.
And then when they find him, it's not scary. They're scared for him.
Yeah.
But he's very hey, I'm on the floor.
I've been here for an hour.
Could you help me up, please?
Classic old person, by the way. That's
I don't want to burden you.
That's a total old person move.
Only noticed that he was down there because he was late for his hangout card game, whatever he does over there.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the hitting the deer. There's lots of just good ways to still have drama, or violence probably isn't the right word, but I've seen some deer get hit. It can be a pretty bloody affair.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they showed those in nice ways that made them still possible to be in the movie, but not too extreme for a young person to watch.
Yeah, it's a really slow movie, but it's a very creative movie as well.
I actually really enjoyed the pacing of the movie because it did feel very slow, but what better movie to have a very boring, slow pace than one with a man driving on a 5-mile-an-hour lawnmower.
It would have been a betrayal to the source material if he'd been traveling fast.
Yeah, I think it was a great. All of those mini adventures that he had within his grand adventure. It was amazing how much that still felt like a David Lynch exploration of like Americana. It was just like the good stuff, not the seedy bars and late night underground and
it's like the kindness of strangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still felt like it could have existed in the Blue Velvet Americana, but only because Alvin goes to bed before dark. Like so
didn't that life look idyllic? Wouldn't you want to I like camping. Right?
Yeah, camping's great.
And I saw this guy riding around on his lawnmower with his sausages in the back, just cooking a hot dog over a campfire every night, just stopping wherever the sun went down on him. Yep. That's a weird way to phrase that.
No,
sorry about that.
All he brought on that trip was just processed meats. It was hot dogs and then like spreadable fucking tube meat.
It's what he likes.
Hey, what are you gonna do?
Once you're that old, you kind of figure out what you like to put in your mouth.
And a lot of times, from people from back then, the answer was cigarettes and processed meat. That's a
cigars.
Yeah,
a pocket full of Swishers.
Yeah. Classic Swisher sweets.
Always smoking up on those cigars.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, what else was there? I read a theory about this movie.
Okay,
that I thought was really cool. So think back to it's kind of the beginning of his last big encounter, his last big episode before he gets to his brother. Is when he's riding through this town. And he's on the hill, and the brakes give out. And as he's rolling down the hill, going faster and faster, he looks over, and these firemen are practicing putting out a fire in a practice fire building, or whatever I don't know if those have a name. And the camera, like, you look, it's quick, cut to him, cut to the ground, going faster and faster. And as he's going, the camera sort of pans over, just subtly over to the burning building. And I don't know if it happened previous or after, but he tells the story about how his daughter, played by Sissy Spacek, she lost her kids because someone else was watching them, and one of them got burned up real bad in a house fire, right? So the state took her kids away because she has some kind of intellectual disability, seemingly. Though it's not clear. It's not like any intellectual disability I've seen portrayed in film before. It seems to mostly be a speech impediment with like a slight learning disability in there as well. But she seems like she'd be fully capable of taking care of kids. So it seems... Yeah,
I mean, he has no problem, like, hey, I'm, going to leave you alone for a few months while I go on this journey.
Right. And she seems totally functional.
Yeah.
So the theory that I read was that in keeping with this being a psychological journey where Alvin Straight is forced to confront the demons of his past, he was the one taking care of the kids.
Oh.
And because of his alcoholism, an accident happened. They got burned up real bad. He's the reason why her kids got taken away. This was a theory that I read on a website called The Movie Mezzanine.
That's interesting. The first things that come to mind when I hear that are his daughter didn't seem to have any ill feelings towards him about it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. She seems like a pretty nice and I think sad about it more than angry.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Mm-hmm. And once you look at it like that, that connects so many of the other events in the movie as well. Like the woman who hits the deer is sort of a parallel to him accidentally shooting that guy in the war.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah.
Cool movie. Cool, good movie.
Cool, good movie. Good and cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, what'd you think of this movie? Well, I thought it was good and cool.
That makes me think of those shitty... Oh, man. Like, for people that know me that listen to this show, all the shitty memes that I post on Facebook, it goes so much deeper and more... like
Curtis looks at... so many more memes than he reposts.
And the ones that I repost are usually like, I think somebody else might get some enjoyment out of this. There's a subreddit called Surreal Memes. Real weird place to be. One of my favorite subreddits lately. and there's like a recurring quote unquote character is like a floating like mannequin head, and usually
What is going on the internet?
usually anytime they see something that's like pleasurable, he'll say cool and good, and and he does not like vegetables. That's
Vegetables are neither cool nor good.
they just they're necessary evil, I think. Good old,
Got to keep that system working.
old
Got to keep that
vegetables.
system running.
yeah. Anyway, this movie is cool, both cool and good. So
Says the floating mannequin head that is taking
if I
up
think
residence
about it
in Curtis's brain.
before you leave, I'll show you some surreal memes. Not that you need that in your life, but
Oh man, I don't have time for surreal memes. I've got a child now.
that's true. That's a thing for the past.
Do you think my kid will like surreal memes? I'm trying to shield her from that garbage, that sick filth.
You'll have to just as an experiment for me, I need you to I'm like curious the first thing in your daughter's life that she's gonna clearly either enjoy
at.
that you're just like, man, what the fuck, or I'm curious. What was the first movie?
Wild at Heart.
Yeah, we
was
already
the
messed
first
that up.
movie that she watched. She right now she likes dancing and looking at high contrast images.
Those are both good things.
So, and she's not allowed any screen time yet. So
That's good.
So I won't be showing her any surreal memes for another couple years.
That's probably good.
Yeah, I think so.
I like high contrast things.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
black and white zebras.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, little jingly bells in your ears.
Yeah.
What is the internet if not high contrast images and little jingly bells in your ears?
What's anything, That's what I find enjoyable. Most of the things that I find enjoyable are probably could be boiled down to some base thing like that.
Yeah, it's like just colors. Colors are great.
Colors are great.
This room is full of colors. It's one of the things that I really like about it.
Yeah.
And little bells that ring in both of your ears.
You know what I like about this room as much as the colors? The rigidity of lines. There are a lot of lines.
Curtis
There are a lot of
loves
lines in
right
this room,
angles. Yeah.
and I really like that.
You know what I like? I
What's
like
that?
lines, but I like them to intersect
Oh,
at
man.
angles that are not 90 degrees. They need to be either much greater or much less than 90 degrees. If I could get lines intersecting kind of like this, right, then I'm a happy camper.
Curious to see how you would cut a cheesecake. That's some
It is
curious
not
now.
functional.
It's it's not good.
It's not good. Nobody
My
likes it.
family hates me.
I
at
am not
Thanksgiving.
popular. I'm not popular at parties, cheesecake parties.
Yeah. Ooh, we should have a cheesecake party.
We should have a cheesecake party. Cheesecake
Anyway.
is a contentious dessert, Curtis.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know how many invites we'd get accepted to that
So
cheesecake party.
here's the thing about cheesecake. I for a long time, long insight into young man Curt.
Mm-hmm. Even better than this Disney movie tangent you went off on.
It's after that. It's before horror college nightmare. After
Before the apocalyptic
before
nightmare.
apocalyptic nightmare. After
Add this to your timelines, folks.
not being able to sleep at Colton's house. I like to have the conversation with people whether they like what do you like better, pie or cake? Mm-hmm. What do you like better, pie or cake, Ben?
Don't ask me questions like that, man.
See, and
I
then,
like ice cream cake better than pie, better than regular cake.
So you put ice cream cake at the top?
Yeah, probably.
Wow. Okay. Well.
I fucking love ice cream, man. If I have pie, I'd probably put a scoop of ice cream right on top.
So you
of
like
there.
cake? That's where it boils down to, where it gets interesting. Because someone will say, I don't know, I love both. How do you pick? And I say, okay, well, if you could only have pie or cake for the rest of your life, what would which one would you pick? And where it gets interesting is things like cheesecake. Mm-hmm. Cheesecake, technically called a cake, much more similar to pie.
Yeah.
Whoopie pie,
Disgusting.
not much like a pie, much more like a cake.
Yeah, more like a cake.
Still called a pie. I don't know why I needed to say that right then, but
Yep.
I'm just agreeing that cheesecake, in terms of my conversation about cake versus pie, is a contentious
It's
dessert.
an outlier. It's one of those weird angles.
Yeah, and that's why you love it. Do you love cheesecake?
I do love cheesecake.
Cheesecake is great.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is not dessert cast, although it should be.
That comes later.
we should do a dessert episode where we eat solely so we can just have an hour of smacky noises in the microphone.
I'm not even going to do it as a joke.
I don't like it because it's directly in your ear, and it's not a pleasant thing.
Whatever the opposite of ASMR is.
Right. Yeah. Some people like that,
I get those bad tingles. Ooh.
Sometimes ASMR videos are eating videos.
I don't like it.
Can't do those.
That's like the BDSM of ASMR. BDASMR. There we go.
Yes. With capital BD and SM and the A and the R.
Are also capital, but much larger.
Yeah.
Much larger font.
Well, the opposite of what you'd think. They have to be stenciled in because they're so big. Back to the Disney movie.
All right, back to the Straight Story.
It was cool and good, as is Cheesecake.
What else did we like about this movie? A lot of good, a great scene that takes place in a hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. The colors were excellent in that hardware store. It felt like every hardware store I've ever been into. They really captured, Jack Fisk, production designer, really captured the essence of the hardware store. And it communicated that this Alvin Straight had, like, people thought he was crazy when he did this. In the movie, at least.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, did you look up anything about the actual Alvin Straight?
Not much.
So apparently he'd only lived in that town in the town of Lorenz, Iowa, for some 5 years before he did this.
Okay.
Yeah. So people didn't really know him. I guess he kind of kept to himself.
I believe that.
Yeah. So then he did this thing, and then he came back, and then 2 years later, he decided to do it again, going the other direction, going west, I think, instead of east.
Yeah.
Fuck me if that geography is wrong. I'm so sorry. Don't at me.
Sorry, people from Wisconsin and Louisiana.
Or Iowa.
Why do I keep thinking Louisiana?
Just feel bad for people in Louisiana in general.
Because they're from Louisiana?
Yeah, man, those levees aren't going to hold.
Oh.
He went the other direction this time. Got, like, sunstroke.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Ended up in a trailer. Ended up dying of complications due to the second journey that he tried to take.
You know what?
He flew too close to the sun.
I was going to say, you know what?
You got greedy, Alvin.
Got a hard time feeling bad for you, Alvin. It was pretty goddamn impressive that you managed to do it the first time.
Yeah.
A little showboaty to do
little
it. Come on.
He actually ended up dying before his brother that he went to visit.
I like that in the movie he went to see his brother because he had this serious stroke and took so fucking long to get there. He was like pretty much all better by the time he was just sitting on his porch like, yo, what up?
Yeah. It's like it just put in his mind, it's like, well, I got to settle my accounts. You know, this whole life thing ain't going to last forever. I got to settle up.
I was curious because as far as I know, this kind of had like, this journey almost kind of had like a Forrest Gump type, like people kind of knew that it was happening as it happened, right?
I think they knew it happened after it happened.
Okay, because I was under the impression that it had,
though I don't know,
got some media.
There was some news coverage,
and I was wondering if in real life his brother knew he was coming. Like,
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. He didn't in the movie, and the movie was good. So,
how about that ending scene?
Man, very powerful.
What a good ending scene.
Yeah, and I really like that they didn't hash out what happened or who had to apologize for what or even what was said. It was just, you know why he's there and you know that he has to swallow some pride to go there, and that's their business. It just kind of, we got to be on this journey, but it was his journey ultimately. So
yeah, like if you've known an alcoholic, then you kind of can fill in the gaps anyway. Like it's not that hard to imagine a scenario in which your alcoholism gets in the middle of an intimate relationship or of a familial relationship.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, the ending scene they just sit down and they're looking at each other. Harry Dean Stanton looking hale and hearty.
Killer performance.
I
know why they billed him third, even though he's only in there for like 30 seconds.
It is a great performance in that moment.
Yeah.
In that moment.
So, before I read the context of this movie, I was going to make a joke about this being the shortest episode of because it was pretty good. Like it's a really good movie. It was a good movie.
Do you think people should go watch The Straight Story?
If you want to.
Do you like David Lynch movies? If you like David Lynch movies and haven't seen The Straight Story, which is probably the case, this movie did not do well in theaters at all and has been kind of forgotten by time, I think.
Yeah.
Go watch The Straight Story. It's a very good movie.
I think it's Yeah,
it's a pretty good movie.
It's a pretty good movie. We'll say I'll meet you at pretty good. They're good, pretty good, very good. I'll meet you at pretty good.
Yeah, we'll find a compromise value.
That's the official seal. The official pretty good Ben and Curt
pretty
Till It Hurts
good.
seal.
pretty good.
Pew 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 pew. All right. Well, next week. This literally is like the shortest episode.
How long have we been going?
Like 38 minutes.
Yeah, that's
which
not
is
too
okay.
bad.
No, I
That's
mean
pretty
it's a
good.
pretty straightforward movie.
Maybe we'll make this episode as long as an episode of Quantum Leap without commercials.
Yeah, so we've got 4 minutes to kill.
Yep.
So
42 minutes.
That means I hate to have your travel time be longer than the episode time.
No.
But
No, we can vamp for a little bit.
We can. So anyway, The Straight Story was a good movie.
Really good movie.
Pretty good movie. Next week we'll be talking about hopefully another pretty good movie.
Hopefully
a fucking great movie.
Everyone says that this is David Lynch's greatest film.
Wow, I'm excited for this.
Yes, me too.
So there will be 2 more parts to the David Lynch series. Next week will be Mulholland Drive. The week after that is a wrap-up, of which we will do things that are kind of secret, I think.
Yep.
I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast.
No, we haven't.
Good. So we'll keep it a secret for our final part. Yeah, is that it? Is that everything?
That's everything.
Cool. Well, if you want to be made even more uncomfortable by things that
I'll be tweeting surreal religious
If
memes
you
off
wanna
the official
hear
Ben
us-
and Curt Twitter account.
If you want to hear us say we're going to talk about a really straightforward Disney movie and then talk about slavery, religion, time and space, time travel,
Quantum Leap,
it's definitely Quantum Leap.
Majora's Mask.
I'll bring that up again.
Chrono Cross.
You can do that by subscribing to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher to listen to more Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, which is the platform we choose to do those things on.
Yes.
You can follow Ben and Curt Till It Hurts at Ben_and_Curt on Twitter. You can follow Curt on Twitter and Instagram at Curtcake5K. That's gonna wrap it up for this week. So
hey, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for sitting through it.
Thanks for sticking with us, folks.
We go off, and sometimes we go to some weird places. So let's continue. Let's not talk about Mulholland Drive at all next week.
Oh man, I get the feeling I'm going to be really excited.
There's going to be a lot to talk about, whether even if it's just a huge letdown. I don't think it will be. I
don't think so either.
I'm excited for this one.
This one sounds good.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.